In a quiet suburb, Jack thought he had found safety. A perfect cul-de-sac, a street that curled back on itself like a promise. But on an ordinary Tuesday morning, everything changed. The road ahead vanished. The houses began to repeat, and the neighbors wore unyielding smiles, no matter how hard he tried to escape. As the loops tightened around him, Jack unearthed a chilling truth hidden beneath the pavement. This neighborhood was not just a place. It was a system. Once it learned his routines, it refused to let him go. This is the tale of a man who set out for work and found himself trapped in a never-ending cycle at the edge of a world that would not end. So let's begin the story.
They tell you that home is where the heart is. They say it like a certainty, like a law of nature, but they never tell you what happens when the home develops a heart of its own. My name is Jack, or it was. Names are one of the first things to dissolve in Oakhaven. They don't disappear all at once. They soften, they lose weight, they stop anchoring anything real. They become secondary, like the brand of cereal in your pantry, like the color of your front door. Details you know are there, but never think about unless something goes wrong. In Oakhaven, identity is a luxury we traded for safety. I remember the day we moved into 1422 Willow Lane with a precision that still makes my chest tighten. Not because it was important, but because it was perfect. The air was thick with the scent of fresh-cut grass and that sharp chemical smell of new construction. Paint that hadn't fully cured. Adhesives still off-gassing. Wood treated to last longer than the people who lived inside it. It was the smell of a fresh start. It was also the smell of something unfinished. Sarah stepped out of the car and stood there for a moment without speaking. She just looked at the house, at the clean lines, at the symmetrical windows, at the roof that sloped at the exact same angle as every other roof on the street. She smiled. She had spent weeks choosing the shade of eggshell for the kitchen. Not white, not cream, eggshell. White felt too sterile, she said. Cream felt dishonest. Eggshell felt lived in, human. That mattered to her. We told ourselves we were building a fortress, a place where the city couldn't reach us, where the noise stopped at the edge of the map. No sirens echoing through alleyways, no arguments bleeding through paper-thin apartment walls, no crowded subways full of strangers whose faces you forgot the moment you looked away. Just lawns, just sidewalks, just the steady rhythmic tick, tick, tick of the neighbors' sprinklers cutting the morning into identical seconds. The sound wasn't loud. It didn't demand attention. It was constant. The realtor had called it peaceful. The brochure had called it timeless. The Homeowners Association packet called it a community committed to consistency. That phrase lodged itself somewhere deep in my mind. Committed to consistency. We moved in on a Monday, unpacked on a Monday, met the neighbors on a Monday. But it was a Tuesday when the geometry of my life broke. I didn't understand that at the time. I only understood it later, after I had replayed that morning so many times it felt like worn film running through a projector. I wake up before the alarm. The bedroom is quiet, too quiet. The sheets are cool, smooth, perfectly tucked, as if they had been reset while we slept. Sarah is already awake. She's lying on her side, watching me. Not smiling, not frowning, just watching. When I ask her about it later, she says she was just enjoying the moment. I swing my legs out of bed. The floor is warm beneath my feet, the same warmth it always is. I shower. The water pressure never changes, not once. I brush my teeth. The mirror doesn't fog the way it should. I dress for work. senior partner. That title still carries weight here. It still means something. I knot my tie. I check my reflection. Everything looks right. I kiss Sarah goodbye. Her lips feel like silk, warm, familiar. I pick up my leather briefcase, the one she bought me when I made partner. She said it made me look established. I step onto the porch. The light is perfect. Not bright, not dim. The kind of golden morning light that makes everything look intentional. Mrs. Gable is already outside. She's wearing her yellow sun hat and a floral dress I will come to recognize far too well. She waters her petunias with careful precision. The stream of water never splashes beyond the soil. "Morning, Jack," she calls. Her voice is cheerful, polished, practiced. "Morning, Mrs. Gable," I reply. I say it the way I always do. Same tone, same inflection. I don't notice yet that I've said this way before. Many times. Everything is perfect. That's what unsettles me now, looking back. The lawns are cut to the same length. The cars are parked at identical angles. The houses catch the sunlight in the same way, reflecting it back like synchronized mirrors. It doesn't feel lived in. It feels displayed, like a museum exhibit preserved behind invisible glass. You can walk through it, you can observe it, but you are not meant to alter it. I get into my sedan. The interior smells faintly of leather and something sweet that never quite fades. The engine turns over immediately. I back out of the driveway. I turn left on Willow. I turn right on Crestview. I drive toward the highway. I'm already thinking about my first meeting of the day when I feel it. At first, it's pressure, the kind you feel when your ears haven't popped yet. Then it becomes something else. The air doesn't vibrate. It doesn't shimmer. It tears. Not violently, not loudly. It tears the way fabric does when it's been stretched too far for too long. The light bends, just slightly. And for the first time since moving into Oakhaven, something doesn't align. Something doesn't fit. Confusion settles in my chest, heavy and unfamiliar. And somewhere behind me, I'm certain the sprinklers stop. The oak tree does not announce itself. It enters my vision gradually, first as a distortion at the edge of sight, and then as confirmation, its knotted trunk and sagging tire swing resolving into something I know well enough that my mind stops paying attention to it. I have driven past this tree dozens of times since moving to Oakhaven, have watched its shadow crawl across the pavement at different hours of the day, have used it as a mental landmark without ever considering that it might someday become a boundary. As I pass it that morning, the sunlight changes, not dramatically, not enough to make me slow down, but enough to register as wrong, sliding from clean gold into something bruised and purple, as if the light itself has been pressed too hard. The shift lasts no longer than a heartbeat, and by the time my eyes adjust, by the time my thoughts catch up, I am already searching for the highway entrance that should be rising ahead of me. It is not there. Instead, I see the entrance sign for Willow Lane, perfectly clean, perfectly angled, its white lettering untouched by weather or age, standing exactly where it stood when I left it moments ago. My mind resists what my eyes insist upon, supplying explanations before panic has time to take root, but those explanations collapse as soon as I see my house. Sarah is still on the porch. Her arm is raised mid-wave, her posture unchanged, her expression fixed in the same pleasant farewell she wore when I backed out of the driveway the first time. She has not shifted her weight. She has not blinked. It looks less like reality repeating itself and more like a still image I have somehow driven into. I stop the car. The engine idles, suddenly too loud in the enclosed space. I look down at the odometer, not expecting impossibility, only confirmation that distance has been covered. It reads 3 miles. I blink and look again. The numbers do not change. I have driven 3 miles, burned fuel, generated heat, and yet I am staring at my own front door. Something small happens then, something I barely register. The radio, which I do not remember turning on, clicks softly and releases a brief wash of static before falling silent again. I laugh, a short, sharp sound that fills the car uncomfortably, and tell myself it is stress, a trick of light, a momentary lapse brought on by the move in the commute. I wave back at Sarah, forcing the gesture to complete itself. She waves again, the movement identical, precise enough to feel rehearsed. I put the car in reverse, back out, turn left on Willow, then right on Crestview, repeating the motions carefully as if accuracy alone might correct whatever has gone wrong. This time, I drive faster, pushing past 60, then 70, then 80, watching the houses smear into bands of beige and white as speed dissolves their details. The sidewalks stretch longer than they should, the intersections feel misjudged, and when the oak tree flashes past my window again, the light bruises once more before snapping back into place. Willow Lane. I do not slow down. I keep driving, gripping the wheel until my hands ache, my jaw locked as I watch the speedometer and fuel gauge with equal intensity. The gas needle drops steadily, the engine temperature rises, and the car behaves exactly as it should. Physics is intact, and that realization unsettles me more than if everything had failed at once. Minutes stretch into something that feels like hours. The dashboard clock remains fixed at 10:15, its red digits glowing steadily no matter how long I drive, and I stop checking it when I realized it will not change. I begin counting intersections, then houses, then breaths, using numbers as anchors, but every count collapses as soon as the oak tree appears again and the world folds inward. Each loop resets the neighborhood, but never cleanly. On one loop, the mailbox numbers are slightly crooked, as if reapplied by unsteady hands. On another, a porch light burns despite the clear morning sky. The sprinklers continue their rhythmic ticking, stopping and starting in intervals that feel less like schedules and more like breaths. Mrs. Gable appears again at 14:24, but she is no longer watering the petunias. She holds the hose aimed at the pavement where a dark circle spreads at her feet. She does not look down. She simply smiles at the sun, her face tilted upward in quiet satisfaction. I roar past her at nearly 90 miles per hour, my heart hammering, and she lifts her head as I pass, her mouth opening wider than it should. "Lovely morning, Jack." Her voice is not distant or muffled. It is inside the car, right beside my ear, intimate and immediate. I slam the brakes, the tires shrieking as the car skids to a stop, and twist around in my seat, expecting to see her in the road behind me. But the street is empty. The pavement is dry. The hose is gone. Only my breathing remains. Then the sprinklers start again. Tick, tick, tick. Exactly on time. I drive on. The loops blur together after that, repetition stripping away disbelief until I stop questioning whether this is happening and start trying to understand the rules that govern it. On one pass, Mrs. Gable waters her own feet, her shoes gone, her ankles submerged in a shallow pool that should not exist. She stands perfectly still, smiling, her teeth longer now, too even, too numerous. On another loop, the hose is completely gone and water pours from her hands as if her skin has learned a new function. Each greeting overlaps itself, her voice arriving before the sound should, echoing ahead of her words. At some point, the radio turns on again. This time, it does not turn itself off. Static fills the car, dense and unresolved, and beneath it I hear a rhythm that has nothing to do with music. It is slow, heavy, patient. I reach out and turn the radio off, but the sound continues, vibrating faintly through the steering wheel and the seat beneath me. Thump, thump. The realization arrives quietly. The sound is not coming from the car at all.
It is coming from beneath the street, beneath the asphalt, beneath the houses, from somewhere deep below the neatly trimmed lawns and identical driveways. As I pass the oak tree again, the light bruises, and for a fraction of a second I see something hanging from the tire swing, something long and pale that vanishes before my mind can settle on it. Understanding does not arrive all at once. It presses in slowly, a suffocating pressure rather than a revelation. This is not a detour or malfunction. Oakhaven is not redirecting me. It is containing me, folding space back on itself with deliberate care, keeping me moving just enough to believe that motion still means escape. The odometer continues to climb, the fuel continues to burn, the heart beneath the street continues to beat. And every time I pass my house, Sarah is still there, still waving, still unchanged, her gesture as precise as the frozen clock on the dashboard. I stop waving back. Eventually, I stop hoping. I drive until distance loses meaning, until speed becomes ritual rather than urgency, until the loop no longer feels like motion and begins to feel like routine. Somewhere along the way, without a clear moment of transition, Tuesday stops feeling like a day and becomes a rule. And I understand that whatever comes next will not be waiting for me at the end of the road. It will be waiting beneath it.
I stop driving when the loop loses its urgency. That is the moment I recognize as the real turning point, though it does not feel dramatic at the time. There is no scream, no sudden decision, no final burst of defiance. I simply pull the car into the driveway as it passes my house yet again, place it in park, and sit there for a long moment with my hands resting on the steering wheel, listening to the engine idle as if it is reluctant to stop performing its role. The silence that follows when I turn the key is heavier than the noise ever was. I step out of the car and walk toward the front door, my feet moving without hesitation, without the frantic energy that drove me earlier, because somewhere during the endless repetition of the loop, I have accepted that motion alone is not escape. The porch boards creak beneath my weight in exactly the same places they always have, and the front door opens without resistance, its hinges silent, as if they have never needed oil. "Sarah?" I call out. My voice sounds different inside the house. Not louder, not quieter, contained. She is in the dining room, standing beside the table as if she has been waiting for me, her posture relaxed, her hands folded neatly in front of her. The table is set for dinner, complete and immaculate. Roast chicken with perfectly browned skin, peas arranged in a precise crescent, mashed potatoes smoothed into a shape that suggests care rather than appetite. Steam rises from the plates, thin and convincing, but as I step closer, I realize there is no smell at all, no warmth, no hint of rosemary or butter or salt. The food is not food. It is matter arranged to resemble a meal. "Jack, you're home early," Sarah says, smiling. Her voice has changed, though I cannot immediately explain how. It carries the same tone, the same rhythm, but it resonates oddly, as if it has been filtered through something metallic, like speech spoken into a polished bowl. The sound reaches me intact, but it feels hollow, emptied of whatever subtle imperfections once made it human. I tell her we are trapped. I point to the windows, to the street beyond them, to the impossible repetition I have just endured, but she does not turn to look. Her smile remains fixed, patient, and when she responds, it is not to what I have said, but to something else entirely. "The neighborhood association is very strict about the lawn, Jack. Did you remember to move the bins?" The words land with unsettling precision, as if they have been retrieved from a script rather than formed in response to my fear. I realize then that whatever is happening outside has already extended itself inward, that the house itself is participating in the same logic as the street, maintaining appearances while something fundamental beneath it shifts. I do not argue. I walk past her and toward the basement door.
The door is heavier than I remember. Not stuck, not locked, but resistant in a way that suggests reluctance rather than obstruction, as if the house itself is weighing the consequences of letting me descend. When it finally opens, the smell that rises to meet me is wrong. Dense and organic, like damp earth mixed with something older, something that has never been exposed to air. The stairs creak underfoot as I descend, each step deliberate, each breath measured. The basement light flickers on at my touch, illuminating the concrete walls and exposed beams with a weak yellow glow that feels inadequate, as if the space is larger than it should be, as if the light is being absorbed before it can do its work. I step out of the car and stare at the floor. The concrete is smooth, unbroken, poured cleanly and evenly, just as it should be in a house like this, but I cannot shake the certainty that it is covering something. Not pipes, not soil, something structural, something necessary. I retrieve the crowbar from the corner where it leans against the wall, its metal surface cold and reassuringly solid in my hands, and bring it down against the floor with more force than I intend. The impact reverberates through the basement, the sound echoing back at me in a way that makes the space feel deeper, more cavernous than it should be. I strike again, and again. My breathing grows louder, harsher, the exertion grounding me even as the concrete begins to fracture, thin cracks spidering outward from the point of impact. I expect to see dirt when the first piece breaks free. I expect dust, rubble, the ordinary mass of excavation. Instead, I see hair. Thick, matted black hair, packed tightly beneath the concrete as if it has been deliberately compressed, layered in dense coils that resist the light. I dig with my hands, pulling away chunks of broken concrete, exposing more of the hair beneath. And as I do, the smell intensifies, no longer merely damp, but animal, alive in a way that makes my skin prickle. Beneath the hair is something hard and white, revealed gradually as I clear more space, its surface smooth and curved, reflecting the weak basement light with a dull ivory sheen. Bone. Not fragments, not remains. A single massive structure, arcing beyond the limits of my vision, too large to belong to anything that should exist beneath a suburban home. I scrape away more debris, my movements slow now, careful, reverent despite the horror building in my chest, and the shape becomes clearer. A rib, immense and gently curved, stretching outward until it disappears into the darkness beyond the reach of my flashlight. The house is not built on a lot. It is built on a rib cage. The realization settles over me with crushing weight, recontextualizing every sensation I have experienced since arriving in Oakhaven. Every subtle vibration beneath my feet, every inexplicable rhythm I heard while driving the loop. I press my ear against the exposed bone, half expecting silence, half expecting madness, and instead, I hear a sound that is unmistakable. A heartbeat. Slow, deliberate. Thump. Thump. The interval is precise, one beat every 60 seconds, as if timed, as if regulated, and I understand then that the neighborhood is not merely resting on this thing, but synchronized with it. The sprinklers, the loops, the frozen gestures, all of it aligned to the steady pulse beneath the street. Oakhaven is not a place. It is an organism, a collective structure that wears the aesthetics of suburbia the way a parasite wears camouflage, presenting lawns and sidewalks and friendly neighbors as a lure, a promise of stability and safety that draws people in and encourages them to settle, to repeat, to comply. It feeds on routine, on predictability, on the comfort of doing the same thing the same way every single day. As long as the lawns are mowed and the bins are moved and the greetings are exchanged at precisely the right moments, the system remains fed. And those who live within it, remain intact, at least intact enough to continue functioning. I step back from the exposed rib, my mind racing to assemble a plan that feels increasingly theoretical, and as I do, I notice something else embedded in the concrete around the bone. Shapes, impressions, faint outlines that only become visible once I know how to look for them. They are not cracks, they are not damage, they are impressions. The negative space left behind by other structures, other supports, long since absorbed or removed, suggesting that the rib beneath my house is only one part of a much larger framework, a skeleton that extends beneath the entire neighborhood, binding it together in a single massive form. The heartbeat continues, steady, patient. I realized then that the loop was never meant to drive me mad. It was meant to slow me down, to bring me home.
The first thing I try is fire. Not because I believe it will work, but because it is the last language I know how to speak. Fire has always been a universal argument, a way of forcing reality to respond. And as I move through the garage, gathering what I can find, my hands shaking as they close around plastic containers and metal cans, I cling to the idea that destruction, at the very least, should provoke a reaction. Gasoline, paint thinner, lawn fertilizer. The smell is sharp and dizzying as I drag them into the living room, sloshing liquid across the carpet, soaking the furniture, the walls, the carefully chosen surfaces Sarah once fussed over. I do not hesitate. Hesitation feels indulgent now. I strike the match and drop it into the spreading pool, already bracing myself for heat, for violence, for noise. The flames ignite, and then they stop. They do not spread. They do not flicker. They do not consume. They hang in the air, frozen, tongues of orange and yellow suspended like sculpted glass, emitting light without warmth, motion without consequence. I step closer, close enough to feel my pulse hammering in my ears, and hold my hand inches from the fire. There is no heat, no resistance. The house does not recoil. The house does not react at all. It occurs to me then, with a clarity that steals the breath from my lungs, that violence is not part of the script here. Change is not permitted unless it follows approved pathways, and whatever governs Oakhaven has already decided how this story is allowed to move forward. I back away from the frozen flames and run. I tear through the kitchen, out the back door, across the yard, my feet pounding against grass that feels too springy, too uniform, as if it has been optimized rather than grown. The fence looms ahead of me, familiar white slots marking the boundary between my property and the neighbors, and I vault it without slowing, expecting to land in another identical yard. I do not. There is no grass on the other side. There is no yard. There is no space in any meaningful sense. What waits beyond the fence is flat, unrendered gray, stretching outward without depth or texture, a surface rather than a void, like the back of a mirror turned outward to face nothing. It is not black, it is not dark, it is simply unfinished, the absence of detail where detail should exist. I stop short, my momentum carrying me only inches from it. The air feels thinner here, not colder or warmer, just less committed to being present. I pick up a rock from the edge of the yard, its weight reassuring in my hand, and throw it as hard as I can into the gray. The rock does not fall. It strikes the surface and stops, suspended mid-air as if embedded in invisible glass, its shadow fixed beneath it, refusing to resolve into anything physical. I step closer, my heart racing, and wave my hand in front of it. There is resistance, faint but unmistakable, like pressing against the boundary of a screen. The physics engine has reached its limit. That is the thought that surfaces, unbidden, horrifying in its casual certainty, and as it does, the world I thought I knew begins to collapse inward. The city, my job, my parents' house in Ohio,
Every memory that extends beyond the neat geometry of Willow Lane suddenly feels less solid, less detailed, as if they were never environments at all, but backstories, flavor text generated to make the central space feel larger than it actually is. Oakhaven is not part of the world. Oakhaven is the world. Everything else is scaffolding. I sink to my knees in the grass, staring into the flat, gray nothingness, my thoughts unraveling as I try to locate myself within a reality that has quietly removed every unnecessary component. The realization does not come with panic. Panic requires the belief that something can still be done. What arrives instead is a hollowing calm, a sense that the argument has already been settled. I climb back over the fence. The yard looks exactly the same as it did before. The house waits. I return to the porch and lower myself in the wicker chair, my body moving with a slowness that feels deliberate, ceremonial. The sun is still in the same place in the sky, its light unchanging, its warmth constant. I sit and watch the curve of the street, my breathing evening out as the familiar rhythm reasserts itself. The car comes around the bend. My car. I watch myself inside it, younger, tighter, vibrating with a fear that feels distant now, like an emotion remembered rather than felt. I see the way my hands grip the wheel, the way my eyes dart towards the oak tree, searching for confirmation that what is happening cannot possibly be happening. He looks so alive, so unstable. I glance down at my own hands. The skin is changing. It is smoothing, losing its texture, the fine lines and imperfections softening until they resemble molded plastic rather than flesh. My fingerprints blur, then fade, leaving behind featureless pads that no longer carry the markers of individuality. When I press my thumb against my palm, the sensation is muted, dulled, as if nerve endings are being quietly decommissioned. I am not dying. I am being standardized, a legacy asset. The phrase surfaces in my mind without context, without emotion, and I understand it immediately. I am no longer a resident. I am infrastructure, a fixed element of the environment, preserved to ensure continuity for those who arrive after me. Sarah joins me on the porch. She moves with the same calm efficiency as always, lowering herself into the chair beside mine, her presence comforting in a way that no longer requires explanation. When I turn to look at her, I see that her face has changed again. Where her eyes should be, there are only smooth indentations, shallow impressions that suggest the memory of sockets rather than their function. She does not seem diminished by their absence. She hands me a glass of lemonade. The liquid inside is pale and translucent, catching the light without reflecting anything real. I lift it to my lips and drink. There is no resistance as it passes into me, no weight, no texture, but the sensation it leaves behind is precise. Sweetness without sugar, cold without temperature, satisfaction without desire. It is exactly what I want it to be. It's a lovely day for a walk, isn't it, Jack? Sarah says. Her voice is gentle, perfectly modulated. I nod. The car roars past again, the younger version of me slamming the accelerator as he spots us on the porch, terror flashing across his face as he recognizes something he cannot yet understand. For a moment, a faint pressure stirs in my chest, something that might have been once empathy, but it dissolves before it can take shape. That phase passes quickly. I lean back in the chair and let the sun warm my face. The heartbeat beneath the street continues its steady rhythm, and for the first time since arriving in Oakhaven, I am no longer resisting it. The loop no longer feels like a trap. It feels like balance, a closed system that has finally shed its excess variables. There is no future here, but there is no uncertainty either. Only the perpetual Tuesday, unfolding exactly as it should. The younger Jack passes the oak tree. I feel it before I see it, the familiar shimmer in the air,
the gentle compression of light as the world folds back on itself with the patience of something that has done this countless times before. He hits the brakes hard, the tires protesting as the car fishtails slightly, and I watch his hands tighten around the steering wheel, his breath coming fast and shallow as he tries to orient himself within a geography that has already rejected him. For a moment, he just sits there. I recognize that moment. It is the instant before denial gives way to calculation, when the mind begins assembling explanations quickly enough to keep panic at bay. I remember the pressure in my chest, the way my eyes darted to the odometer, to the mirrors, to the edges of the road, searching for confirmation that the world was still obeying rules I understood. He looks at me then. I am standing where Mrs. Gable once stood, on the edge of the lawn at 1422 Willow Lane, my posture relaxed, my expression pleasant, my weight distributed evenly in a way that suggests permanence rather than readiness. The sun catches the surface of my skin and reflects softly, not quite the way it used to, smoothing details that once felt important. He stares. I do not wave at first. There was a time when I tried to warn him. I remember opening my mouth, feeling words gather behind my teeth, imagining myself shouting, gesturing, doing anything that might fracture the moment and send him careening towards some different outcome. I remember the frustration of that instinct, the way it felt urgent and correct and completely useless. That phase does not last long. I have learned that interference introduces instability, and instability draws attention, and attention is the only thing Oakhaven does not tolerate. The system is generous with repetition, but it is unforgiving with deviation. So, I wait. He shifts in his seat, his eyes flicking toward the oak tree again, toward the tire swing hanging motionless beneath its branches. He knows now, on some level he cannot articulate, that crossing that boundary again will complete something rather than undo it. His fear sharpens, becoming focused, almost intelligent, and for a brief, fleeting moment I feel something stir in me. Recognition. It passes. I raise my hand. The motion is smooth, economical, practiced through repetition until it has shed all unnecessary tension. My joints emit a faint, plastic clicking sound as they settle into position, a sound so soft it barely registers as auditory information, more a suggestion than a noise. "Morning, Jack," I call out. My voice is perfect. Not loud, not soft. It carries exactly as far as it needs to. It is the voice of a man who understands his place in the system, who no longer mistakes volume for authority or urgency for meaning. The words leave my mouth without effort, without doubt, and I feel a faint, distant satisfaction in how well they fit. He freezes. For a second, our eyes meet, and I see the terror there, raw and unfiltered, the same terror I once felt when the loop first closed around me. It looks almost unreal now, exaggerated in its intensity, like a performance rather than an emotion. I do not mirror it. I hold my smile. He slams the car into gear and accelerates hard, the engine roaring as he races toward the oak tree, toward the shimmer, toward the point of no return that will inevitably return him anyway. The car disappears around the bend, swallowed by the curve of the street, and I know with complete certainty where it will re-emerge. I lower my hand. The motion feels final, not because it ends anything, but because it completes a cycle in precisely the way it is meant to be completed. I turn and walk back to the porch, my steps unhurried, my balance perfect, the world accommodating me without friction. I sit. The wicker chair creaks beneath my weight in the same places it always has, the sound as familiar and comforting as the steady pulse beneath the street. I rest my hands on my knees and look out across the cul-de-sac, watching the light settle into its fixed position.
It is 10:15 a.m. It has been 10:15 a.m. for as long as I can remember. It will remain 10:15 a.m. for as long as remembering remains necessary. The sun does not move. The shadows do not lengthen. The sprinklers begin their cycle with the same precise rhythm, tick, 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 each click aligning with the heartbeat below, each droplet arcing through the air and falling exactly where it is meant to fall. The neighborhood breathes in this measured way, expanding and contracting within boundaries that never change. Sarah sits beside me. I feel her presence more than I see it, a constant weight in the periphery of my awareness, as stable and unremarkable as the house itself. When she speaks, her voice blends seamlessly with the ambient sounds of the street, no longer distinguishable as separate or special. I close my eyes, not because I am tired, because there is nothing left to watch that I have already seen. The heartbeat grows slightly louder, not in volume, but in clarity, its rhythm asserting itself as the fundamental structure beneath everything else. Each thump reverberates upward through bone and concrete and soil, through lawns and sidewalks and living rooms, reinforcing the simple truth that keeps Oakhaven intact. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing here is lost. Everything serves a purpose, even if that purpose is only to repeat. "Lovely morning," I whisper, my voice barely disturbing the air. The gray beyond the fence answers back, not with sound, but with confirmation, a subtle shift in pressure that tells me I have been heard. "Lovely morning." The heartbeat slows, not because it is weakening, because it has nowhere else to go.